this is Nikki in Niagara coming to you from Niagara Falls, Canada. And I am bringing to you today my reading wrap-up for December 2021. These are all the books I read in December, and I read a total of 20 books. And what I've been trying to do is read a physical book and then read a Kindle book. And I'm trying not to, well, I'm succeeding, so I'm not buying as many Kindle books as I used to. So I don't even know what I'm trying to say. So I'm trying to alternate between a physical book and a Kindle book. So I will just show you the books that I physically have, and I'm going to see if I can try and figure out how to put one of those pictures, a picture of the book up there. So I have absolutely no idea how to do it. And I'm using Wondershare Filmora, or something like that it's called. So if anybody can tell me how to do it, if you don't see pictures of books up here in a little bit, please someone tell me how to do it. So in the meantime, I am going to be coloring out of Artsy Girls by Deborah Muller. This is for my color along for the whole year of Nikki Colors Muller. And you can join me by coloring any pictures by Deborah Muller. And this also fits the color along in Deborah Muller's book. We're working on finishing this book in 2022. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to tell you about the books. So first of all, the first book I read this month was 6 Rooms by Gemma Amor, and I really wanted to like this a lot. It sounded so good, but unfortunately I didn't enjoy it as much as I wish I had. But it was a decent book. I gave it a 3. So this is about a group of tourists who go for a tour through this really weird house. Well, the house, I don't know exactly what the house is. I think it was owned by some kind of crazy guy, and he built this really fancy house. But the staff are creepy. First off, they are all gathered in a room with the tour guide, and the tour guide is this really, really creepy looking guy. So while they're taking a tour of the room, there's also a guy who is a book researcher or something like that. His job is to go through the entire library in the house, and there are bookshelves in every single room of the house. And he's a book repairer, and so he's going through repairing the books. So we have these two storylines joining together. Well, he actually meets up with the group when they come into the room that he's working in, and that's how he ties into them. And strange stuff starts to happen, and we follow the experiences of everybody as they're going through the house. So it was good. There's nothing wrong with it. It just wasn't as exciting as I had thought it would be. It's a gorgeous book, even though it's an Amazon printed book, I think. Oh no, it's not. Yes, it is. It's an Amazon printed book. It's got those matte, kind of like rubbery covers, and it's the size of a hardcover. So it's a nice book, and I did enjoy it to a degree. Next book I read was The Fold by Peter Clines. And this was the second book. It's the sequel to the book 14, which I read a few months ago. So this story, I'm going to read what I wrote down here. This story involves a science research facility and their work on transporting. I loved this. I gave it a 5. It was a fast read with a lot of really wild events happening. It was very action-packed. Like I said, just lots of stuff going on all the time. It takes place entirely on Earth, so if you are not a fan of science fiction, I think you'll still like this. It's you know, it's got the vibes of a library. What am I trying to say? Of a science research room rather than, you know, aliens and space and that kind of thing. It's that kind of science fiction. And the cast of characters was just absolutely wonderful. That I loved every single person in this book. They were quite well fleshed out, and they were a very unique category or selection of people. This is not a direct sequel to the first book. It's, what does he call it? The author calls it a sidequel. So it's a story that takes place in the same universe, and there are a few nods in the text. I think I said the wrong word there a minute ago, but there's a few nods to the first book, so you don't have to have read the first book. You will understand more about what's happening because it's the same universe, and that gets all explained in the first book. Or by having read the first book, I should say, you have an idea of what that world is and what it includes. So you won't get all that. You won't like know all the stuff that you'll know if you haven't read the first book. So I recommend you do that, though you don't have to. You won't lose out any meaning of the plot or anything like that if you don't. So a really, really good book. I'm glad I read it. And there's one more in this it's a trilogy, but like I said, they're all side books set in the same world. So the next book that I read is a not my usual type of book. This, I guess, to me, this was a cozy book. It says here stuff like hilarious, thought-provoking, poignant, what a joy to read, what a voice, delightful, hilarious and utterly winsome, delightful. Those are the kind of words that are applied to it. To me, it's like a cozy. And I've called it a cozy family drama. There's quite a bit of a story in here, so I'm just going to read what I wrote down. The mother has breast cancer, and each of the 3 daughters who no longer live at home, they come back home to be with her and help out as they can. They don't exactly get along with each other because they're very different. One is a homebody who has always been close to home, and another has moved to New York and is highly fashion-centered. And the youngest is a bohemian at heart and has traveled from hostel to rest houses, traveling with the homeless. They are very different, but each comes home with a secret. And it's those secrets that each one brings with them that is the meat of the book. And so the story is of each one's individual story of how their secret is affecting their life. And are they going to tell the others about their secret? And if so, who are they going to tell? When are they going to tell? Etc. So it was highly enjoyable. Basically a story of familial love, a story of sisters. And I just loved them all. Each one of them was just a wonderful person. They had their quirks, they had their flaws, but they were fully realized, flawed beings. And I just really enjoyed it. I like family dramas. Usually the ones I read take place within a thriller setting, but they don't have to be. I like just plain books about families as well, and this was a really good book. Surprisingly, I only gave it a 3, but now that I talk about the book more, it's left its meaning to me. In the book has like left its story to me. I don't have any like holes in my memory about what the book was about. Just looking at this book gives me the cozy feeling. So I would up that to a 4 now, I think. I think after you've read books and rated them, after some time has gone by and you think about the book, you either draw a blank and you can't remember anything, or it stayed with you quite well. And I think that's what happened with this, and its rating has changed. So I now give it a 4. So the next ebook I read was For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. And OMG, did I ever love this. I gave it a 5. Now I read a lot of thrillers, and sometimes it's hard to remember what a book was about just by saying the title of the book. So I'm just going to read to you what I wrote down, and hopefully that will get me going. So, a private school... Oh, I remember that. I know what the story is about now. Excuse me while I take a sip. I'm drinking Diet Dr. Pepper. I'll be taking sips quite frequently because I have dry mouth condition, and talking makes my voice go weird. So, a private school teacher does things for his students, and he's doing it for their own good. He doesn't let them know that these things that he's doing for them is for their own good, even if they wouldn't think that it was for their own good. He also takes this attitude with all of the staff, like doing things like there's a chubby woman, and he will sometimes steal her cake out of the fridge, or other things like that, or sometimes he brings apples to school, and he'll put them, like he'll hand them out to a few people and make sure he's giving one to her. So no one knows exactly what he gets up to. He's got a secret life behind this teacher. But then people start dying, and they start dropping dead like quite quickly after one another. And from there on, it is just a wild ride. I couldn't put the book down, and I ended up reading it in one day. It was a super addictive read. It's just one of those books that you put it down, you maybe like go get something to eat or go to the bathroom, but then the next thing you got to get back to that book. And you can sit there for hours just reading it, because there's no way you're going to bed until you know how it turns out. And this was one of those books, and I gave it a rating of 5 stars. So now the next book that I read is by one of my favorite authors, Jeff Vandermeer, and this one is Dead Astronauts. Here we are. I have nothing to say about this book. I'll tell you some of the words that they use on it. Transcendent, phantasmagoric visions, strange and odd, a Mobius strip, dreamlike, explores urgent ideas. So if you can tell, none of those words actually tells you what the book is about. And on the back of the book, there's just these kind of weird descriptions of the different characters, just quick And so I read this whole book, and I have absolutely no idea of what it was about. The first part of the book is just a stream of consciousness where there's these three people, at least you think they're people, and you just, things are happening. At the last part of the book, it tries to explain some of the stuff that was going on in the rest of the book, but it's too little, too late. And I just have to say that it's disjointed text. There's no cohesiveness. And I mean, there's even this section where there's the same sentence that just gets repeated over and over and over again for like, oh, and then you get pages like this where this text is just written on the bottom of the page. I have no idea what that's for. But where are these pages where it's just, yeah, okay, so here we go. They killed me, they brought me back. 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 And that's like for 4 pages. And then you get a page like this that has one sentence on it. One time I escaped. So I gave this 2 stars, and it is really only a book for die-hard Vandermeer fans. I'm probably just not smart enough to understand what this book is about, and I'm sure there's people out there who are and will understand it a lot more than I do. So, then the next book should be a Kindle book. So that was Shepherd of the Black Sheep by Christopher Triana. So this is, I think, the 3rd book that I've read by him. And the first one I read by him was that I can't remember. It starts with the word come. But anyways, that was the first book I read by him, and I loved it. And it was like extreme horror. And the next 2 books, including this one, have just not been what I've been expecting. So this is a modern Western, and I was a bit disappointed with it, as I had expected it to be violent. But it was only mildly so. After his daughter and her husband die, a 10-year-old girl, after his daughter and her husband die, okay, so, I get it. I wasn't sure what I'd written down there. Okay, so there's this man, and after his daughter and her husband, his son-in-law, die, their daughter, a 10-year-old girl, comes to live with him. But he's doing everything he can to be the best grandfather he can be to her, to help her raise her and all that sort of stuff, but he can't figure her out. There is something strange about her. She's cold, and she has this empty stare, and everybody's saying that it's because she's in shock. It's just how she's handling grief, and you know, that's what's happening. But he's not too sure as he finds out more and more about what his granddaughter is like, and he wonders, is it because of her grief, or is there something more sinister going on? And that is the basis of the story. So it was decent. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. It just wasn't, I started off being a little bit disappointed, and it just wasn't what I had hoped for, I guess. So I gave it a 3. The next book that I read is my first Graham Masterson book. I gave Yeah, I said that right, Masterton. So it was my first book by him, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. So this is a horror book with your horror creature in it. Strange fetus-like creatures are crawling into women while they sleep. The sewers have become dangerous as something is killing those who enter, like sewer workers. This is a really good, creepy monster book. It has a good pace and lots of gory details. I've since found out that this is a sequel to a previous book. These are about a police detective team who investigate, well, not a team, it's a duo. The man and the woman are partners, and in the first book and this book, they investigate unusual or supernatural cases. And everybody in the book accepts the supernatural as normal. Like, if nobody, like, you know, says, well, of course it's not that. It's like, is it supernatural? We better get these two working on this case. And so that's what the first book had, like that kind of premise too. I want to go back and read it, just in case. This is his newest book. It came out it came out in 2021. So just in case more books in the series come out, I'd like to read that first one. And so, yeah, that's everything that I wrote down here. So, yeah, a really good, creepy monster / creature horror book. And it's, of course, got, yeah, I think I said creepiness to it. I gave it a 4. Okay, so next we should have... Okay, so next I finished my... just let me get the... Oh no, this is what I need right here. So, as you know, if you've watched these before, I read a short story every morning with my coffee. That's the first thing I do before I start reading anything else or doing anything else. I have to read my short stories. So it was at this point that I finished the current short story book that I was working on, and it was part of the, is it Akashic? Let me turn to the page. Yeah, Akashic Noir series. And this one was Amsterdam Noir. It's been a long time since I read anything that takes place in Holland, the Netherlands. So I enjoyed that aspect of the book. It wasn't one of the better books in this series. I usually enjoy the books in this series quite a bit, but this was not one of the better ones. I gave it a 2. Let's see what I had to say about this. Collection of stories with some connection to crime or the dark side of life. So that's one thing that was a little bit different from the rest of the books in this series, is because they usually do try to be noir in the sense that you would think it is, you know, with crime going on. This one, in the intro, they said that they don't write a lot of crime in the Netherlands. So to find stories for this book, they increased their expectation of what a noir book was by including some books that were like the darker side of life. So these take place in Amsterdam and are written by Dutch authors. So this is kind of a case of, I didn't hate any of the stories in here, but I didn't love any of them either. It was all just kind of a, yeah, you know, that's okay. I don't know why I gave it 2 stars. I think I meant to give it 3, because that's definitely not what I would call a 2-star book. So yeah, I think I made a mistake there, and I meant to write down, 2 3 and not 2. I need to shake my marker. Okay, so the next book I read was my ebook, and I read another Kirsten, I think that's how you pronounce her first name, Kirsten Maudglen book. I discovered her a couple of months ago, and I have been steadily reading her backlist, which is quite extensive, ever since then. Her books are all Kindle Unlimited, so they're free if you are part of the program. Now, her books all kind of run together. You know, once you've read a few of them, you can't remember which one is which, so I will have to read what this one was about. I gave it a 3. Wesley Gates' life is getting him down, and to make matters worse, his wife throws him out so she can think things over. Wes meets an old schoolmate and is offered a room in his place. And it doesn't take long for Wes to realize something is not quite right about this guy. So that's where the story starts to take its thriller-ish turn. Her books always end with a twist, and that's kind of like how they're short books, they're novellas, most of them, and usually how I rate them is if the twist was really, really good, they get a higher rating. So this one was just, you know, it was quick, it was fun, and it had a decent twist. So the next book I read was Sarah Waters' Little Stranger. After I had read this and written down my review, I went over to Goodreads to write in my review, and I found out I had already read it back in, I think it was 2014. I didn't remember a single thing. Not at one point in time did I think did I get that deja vu feeling that you get when you think you've read a book before, but you're not sure. And I was just as taken with it as I was. The first time I reviewed it, I gave it a 5. This time I gave it a 4. It's an atmospheric, moody gothic. Only 3 members of a landed gentry family are left on the dilapidated estate. So this is one of those family drama books. It's also a book about a house, and I really like that when a house is an integral part of the story. Mrs. Ayres, so the 3 people are Mrs. Ayres, who has a tragic past, the only son Rodney, who is stressed out to the max with his responsibilities of running the farm, and the daughter Caroline, who is a plain, brusque-spoken woman. So basically I said it was a slow book with a ghost. It was engaging, and I gave it 4. So I didn't really glow or gush with my reviewing of it. It's just, you know, it's not a lot of action. It's just, you know, a slow, quiet, you know, there's interesting things that happen, of course, because, you know, there's a ghost in there, so it's a little bit creepy, but, you know, it's your traditional, well, not traditional, because with Sarah Waters, you never get traditional, but it's a gothic, you know, and it has that feeling all the way through, and like, I really enjoyed it. It's just a really well-written, good story. So when I went back to the Kindle, I went back to Kirsten Maudglen, and this time I read I Said Yes. And this one I gave a 3, same as last time. So now I've read enough of hers that I know what a really, really good book by her is like. So this one, we have a whirlwind romance, which leads to a quick marriage. And now it is 3 years later. And they realize that they don't know anything about each other's past. Can't remember why it came up, but things about their past started coming up, and they just didn't know. They didn't know anything about each other. And now someone is dead. So this was a typical fast-paced Maudglen book. The twist at the end was surprising and a quick, fun read, which all her books are. So there's really not much more to say. They're not, the world's best written books, but they are, if you want a fun, quick book with a twist, then, or thriller with a twist, then she's your girl. So then we go back to a physical book, and I read a book I got from the Abominable Book Club, was 48 by James Herbert. This was the gently used book. Now, when I read the back here, I was a little, I'm not too sure, because it was set in, Hitler, they lose the war so the book means 1948. So the war's over, and they're going to get Hitler, but just before he's killed, he unleashes the Blood Death on Britain as his final act of vengeance. And so you get this Blood Death, and a lot of people died immediately. They had a one-day sickness in which they died. And if they didn't do that, then they were what they called, they had what they called the slow death, which meant that the same thing happened to them, but it happened over a course of weeks or months. These people would live, but they would just gradually get sicker and sicker, with, coughing and all that kind of thing. But there were some people who were immune to this virus, and these are called what do they call them? No, that's not them. They don't call them anything. The reason that they survive is because they have AB negative blood. So if you have AB negative blood, then this virus didn't affect you. Now I'll just have a read anything else here. So yeah, this follows the usual apocalyptic trope of a main character going along, meeting strangers, they all join up together, and our main character is chasing the black shirts. And those are the ones who are dying slowly from the disease. They've all banded together under the leader of a man who used to be a well-known, high-powered person back in the days before the apocalypse. So the reason that he's after them is because they have been after him. They know about the AB negative stuff, and because of that, they found him, and they're trying to get him so that they can do experiments with his blood and find a cure for themselves. And of course, he meets up with these other people who have the AB negative blood, and they join him in getting these black shirts, because now that they're all together, these guys are after all of them. So this was basically an action story. It just went from action scene to action scene to action scene. And that's why I gave it a 3. I don't like action stories. I used to like watching action movies when I was younger, but, I'm not really into those now. And that's what this read like. It read like it was an action movie. So I gave it a 3, and rather than all that action, I would have preferred some more character development in it. But It's a good solid 3. If you're a fan of what I just said, the description I gave you, then you'll enjoy it. And if you like James Herbert, you'll probably want to read it. So next we go back to okay, I need to get my colors out for this one. Okay, so I want a yellow, I want a blue. I need 2 shades of blue. Do we have it? Let's see if these 2 are different shades. Why is this not working? Oh, I forgot to shake it. And I guess I can tell you while I'm doing this. So this one's called Missing, and it came out this year as well. Well, 2021 as well. It's a new release. Oh, there we go. So that's what color that one is. And this one, oh yeah, they're completely different blues. So I need the yellow, the blues, and I want a dolphin color. Well, I don't have gray. Oh, let's use silver. Is that silver? That looks like it's black. Here's one that's silver. Haven't used these Crayola ones for a long time. It'll work. Okay. So Missing is 5 unrelated people end up on a deserted island. What happens for each one of them, some guy came up to them on they find them at a tropical resort, and this guy comes up to them and asks them if they'd be interested in a free boat ride. And these people are all by themselves, and they all said yes. And so anyways, they go out on the boat and they have a party, and you know, they enjoy themselves and everything. And then they go to this island and everybody gets off, and then the next thing they know is that the boat is taking off without them, and it's left them behind. So other than that, I don't really remember anything about it except for the ending, and I obviously don't want to tell you that. But I gave it a 3 as well. So you know, it's a good solid 3. You're gonna get a good, fast-paced, fun thriller with a twist at the end. So then the next book is a real one, or is a physical one. I don't know why I called this a real book. Okay, so this is Taryn Fisher, and this is her book from last year, I believe. It came out, oh wait, I wrote it down here. No, it came out in 2019. So a few years ago. It's her first book when it came out. And I like this. You'll have whiplash until the very end, and that is so, so true. The Wives by Taryn Fisher. I gave this 5 stars, and this was just absolutely amazing. Just listen while I read it here. So Thursday is the middle wife, and jokingly, she and the husband call the other 2 wives Monday and Tuesday. Their husband is a polygamist, and he's married to all 3 of them. They know about each other, but they've never met each other. So anyways, Thursday finds out about the newest wife, the 3rd wife. She actually finds out who she is and where she lives. And so she ends up visiting her under false pretenses. She pretends to be somebody she's not, just so that she can meet her, see what she's like, you know, take a look at her house, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Then from this point on, everything goes absolutely wild. I counted 4 twists that threw me for a loop and completely changed the course of the plot. So you're reading along, and all of a sudden this like earth-shattering twist comes along, and the book's not what you thought it was. It's something else. And then it happens again. So a total of 4 times I counted that happened to me. So obviously it was, I thought it was an absolutely fantastic 5-star book. It's one of my favorites, one of my favorite reads from the year. And she has a second book out now, so I'm going to go read that, and I see her potentially being one of my favorite authors. So, good book if you like thrillers. You have to read this. Then at this point, I finished my next storybook collection that I was reading through. And this is the Gastling, book number 14. This is a magazine / book, or maybe you want to call it a periodical. It's sold at the magazine stands, but it also has an ISBN. So you can find it on places like in bookstores and like Amazon. So this is a British indie magazine. On the back it says that your name is inside if you're a Patreon member. And the book is a collection of ghosts, the macabre, and the oh-so-strange. Now the book's graphic design is just absolutely terrific. I mean, look at this. It just definitely makes you want to read the book when this is what your book is going to be laid out for you. This is obviously the Halloween edition. I hope we get another one of these because this came in the Abominable Book Club as well. Now the stories in it were okay. There was 3 in here that I really, really loved, and there's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that's 30%, is it? 3 out of 9? I'm going to go with that. But anyways, I really loved that. There was a couple that I didn't like, and then the rest of them were, average 3-star stories. And so that's what I ended up giving the book as a whole. But those 3 that were 5 stars for me were really good stories. So I would definitely read this, another issue of this magazine, and I think it's also a good present to get for people who like the weird in their books. So yeah, I was pleased with that. Then the next one I read. Okay, where did I put it? Okay, so I've been reading some of the books for the challenges in my book. In my reading journal. This is the one by the Book Riot, and it has a sticker on it that says the Book Riot Reading Journal, but I took that off. So I did the one for reading a book that was originally published in a language other than English, and so I chose manga, and I reread Doubt by Yoshiki Tonagai. So it is a 2-volume, very thick. Each volume of this contains 2 volumes of the Japanese edition. So originally it was a 4-edition manga, a 4-volume manga, and it's been gathered together into 2 editions for volumes for English readers. So this is an absolutely fantastic story, and it will be liked by gamers because it's based on not a real, but in the story the main characters are gamers, and this game called it's called Rabbit Doubt, has become really popular, and it's like the thing. And this all happens in the first little part. And this group of people who play together, they decide to do a meetup and meet each other in person, and have a fun day together, doing things like going to the karaoke and stuff, shopping and stuff like that. So they do that. They all meet. They go sing karaoke, and then the next thing that they know, they're all waking up and finding themselves in a room that's cold, cement, no windows. And they realize they're in an abandoned warehouse. So now what happens is that the game turns real. And one by one, they start to be killed off. And the game is to find out who the killer is before they kill you. And so goes on the series. So I've read this twice, and it was just as exciting this time as it was the last time. I remembered who did it, but I was getting really confused while I was reading of whether I really remembered that or not. So yeah, I had fun with this. A great series if you like horror manga. This Doubt by Yoshiki Tonagai. Okay, then on my next book on Kindle was Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, and this was another 5-star read for me. This was just absolutely fantastic. So, you have a man and a woman whose marriage isn't going on so great, and they decide to go for a weekend getaway, even though they really don't have anything to get away from anymore. They go to a sort of like cottage. It's actually a renovated church. It's a small church, obviously, but still quite large for a cottage. And it's up in the Scottish Highlands, and it's in a very, very secluded place. And so they decide to go there. Now, the book is told in alternating POVs from Adam and then Amelia and backwards and forwards. And then we start getting another person in there so that we end up having 3 people. Now, in the meantime, during these 3 narratives, we have one other narrative. And this is of a spouse writing a letter to their spouse on their anniversary. And it gives a review of, what happened to us as a couple this year. And it goes from anniversary to anniversary, except the letters are never sent to the spouse they're being written to. And then all of a sudden there is a twist which totally blindsided me. And that twist just completely changes the purpose of the book. Excuse me. You're reading one book, and then this twist happens, and now you're reading another book, and it's just a totally different direction. It just like, I was like, wow, I couldn't believe it happened, and then I'm just reading and reading. It's like, I gotta find out how this ends, and so I just kept going and going and going, and I loved the ending. I thought it was a great book. Highly recommend that one. If you're a thriller fan, you got to put it on your must-read list. Some people didn't like it, but I don't know what kind of people they are. So then I read another Kindle book because I wanted to get it read. It was another new release for 2021, and that was Paula Hawkins' A Slow Fire Burning. So I think I've read all her books now. There may be one I haven't read, so I have to go back and check that. And this was a huge disappointment. Major, major disappointment. I wouldn't even call it a thriller. I would basically just say that it's a mystery. Like, thrillers are supposed to have thrills, and this was very slow paced, and it didn't have a thrill in it anywhere. Honestly, I just found the book boring. And then when it came to the end, I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I gave it a 2. I don't give a book a 1 very often because I figure I read it, I made it, somehow the author got me to read the book from beginning to end, that at least they deserve a 2, is my feeling. So that's what this gets, a 2. And then finally, I ended the year off by reading another book for one of my challenges in here. And just let me find it. And this was a physical book. And this is Plank Children by Michael Schultz. Nope, I always want to call him Schultz, but there is no L, so it's Schutz. Michael Schutz. And this was for the challenge of reading a book that contained an LGBT character. And the main character in this book is gay. And it is called Blank. It is called Plank Children, and it is a horror book. And I gave it a 4. I really enjoyed it. And you know, look, this was the last book I read this month, but I've read like 3 books this year already. And I'm on my 4th, I think. So it feels like it's a further back in time than what I really did just read it. And I'm really thinking that this could be a 5-star read. But I have given it a 4. And so anyways, our main character, Miles, his nephew, let's get back to coloring, his nephew dies in a car crash. And then 9 months later, he's on Facebook, and he sees that his sister, his nephew's mom, has posted a recent picture of the family with Ian, the nephew. And he's like, how can this picture be here when he's dead? And so he calls up his sister, and she talks. He can't understand what she's saying except that Ian's not really dead. And he's like, what the heck? So anyways, he drives down there, and he ends up going to an old reformatory, which used to be an orphanage. So this gets me already because I absolutely love stories that involve old orphanages. So this is where Ian is supposed to be. For some reason, he's been sent to this place, and so Miles said, well, you know, he's not going there. I'm bringing him home if he's not. If, you know, they say that the wrong body was found, that they misidentified who the dead person was. It was his friend and not him. So he goes there, and he walks into a volatile and dangerous situation involving the supernatural, and he finds that his life is in danger. The great thing about this is that while all this supernatural stuff comes up, he takes it in his stride. He just is like, oh, look, there's ghosts here. These children have suffered a terrible death, and they need to be vindicated, and I must help them out, is basically what happens. Like, that's one situation. There's other situations, and he just takes it like, oh, you know, he like totally believes it's supernatural, and you know, there's none of this spending half the book going, oh, is it a ghost, or is it really a ghost? Is it somebody else pretending to do stuff? And, you know, it's just like, get to the point, and it goes straight through. So I loved all the people in the book, even the bad characters. I thought they were a lot of fun. There was nobody who, like, totally annoyed me. Even the most evil character who, like, would totally annoy me in real life, I enjoyed his character. And it's just, like, totally creepy, atmospheric, and pretty gory. Not overly, but, you know, if you're sensitive, you would probably think it was extremely gory. But if you're used to gore, it's just, like, kind of, you know, a bit gory. So yeah, great book. I'm thinking now it should be a 5 instead of a 4, because there's nothing wrong with it. It was great. I loved it. So this is Plank Children by Michael Schutz, and I believe he's an independent author as well. Yep, Amazon printed book. And I just love the cover. Don't you love the cover? And those are all the books that I read in December of 2021. So I hope you enjoyed listening to my wrap up here. I feel like this one went the best. I think I've gotten into a place now. I feel more comfortable talking about the books, and I'm so glad I started the reading journal because I have been having so much fun writing in it and just using it, and it's going to be a great keepsake to look back at in the future. So anyways, thank you for allowing me to share this with you, and thank you for watching. So until next time, bye!